We've got some fresh
Hey, I'm Luis.
And this is Luis.
And welcome to the Content is Profit podcast.
In here, you're going to get the insights, accountability, and drive to create consistently and increase revenue.
You'll hear from top entrepreneurs, creators, and anything and everything you need to know about content. All these while having a good time, baby.
The goal of this podcast is simple: entertain, educate, and turn your content into profit. Ooh, yeah.
Hey, welcome, FONZI. Welcome back.
Dude, you look like a DJ just like pressing all the buttons.
I prayed that I hit every button right, and I did.
It was pretty good.
I know. By the way, I should be talking from here to the
Somebody is salty. Somebody's salty. Here, we're gonna give a
tease.
A tease. Yeah. So, as you know, we are part of the incredible HubSpot podcast network, and one of the resources that they provided was having a podcast producer go through our podcast and roast us. No, I'm kidding. That wasn't his goal. His goal was to give honest feedback, right? And
That's
we
right.
just got the feedback. We both read it. And obviously we accept constructive criticism. We love it. But obviously, you know, you got a little bit of ego involved. Is your podcast is your baby.
It's your baby.
So some of it kind of like hurt a little bit, and we decided to do an episode where we go through
We're gonna
the
go
feedback.
and break down all the feedback.
Yeah, and just talk about it or
Yes.
comments, whether we agree, whether we disagree.
I need to process it.
I know.
It's like they tell you, hey, you know, your baby is nice, but he's not good looking.
You have
He's
an ugly baby.
Yeah.
I like that. You got an ugly baby. I think that's a good metaphor, but also I think it's a lesson, right? Like we gotta let the feelings cool down. 24 hours, 48 hours before we actually talk about it.
I think it also comes from a place that I like to zig when everybody's zagging, you know. So
Yeah, me too.
So
I agree.
I think that's why, because this show has been so different in many ways, and we're gonna dive into that in that episode.
This is a teaser.
But yeah, but like that, this is fresh. This is like 15-minute fresh.
Literally.
But anyways, FONZI, welcome back. We had a great episode last time. We said that we were gonna do the whole story in like 20 minutes. We did not. We did like.
Well, we said
it.
we're going to do the story and then talk about, you know, six-figure platform publishing pyramid, kind of like the secrets, the frameworks that build our company. But yes, we only dove into part of our story, which, I'm not going to lie, we did a pretty good job painting the image of kind of like what it took for us to gain that minimum, right?
And you behind the headphones, right? Like, do you catch up that story? Like, do you listen to that episode? If not, go back and listen to the last episode, because it's a great way to get started and get to know us a little bit better, get to know the business and get to know the podcast.
If you're wondering which one is the episode, it is episode 272, Turn Your Content into a Profit Machine, part 1. Woo! This is part 2, baby. So just quickly, 30-second, 1-minute recap on our story. What we covered last time. Go. Timer's on.
We cover how we came to the States, how we went to college here in the States, how we cold DM like 300 coaches, how we did stickers, t-shirts, failed a bunch of businesses. We tried so many ideas. We fell for the Lambo, the marketer.
Yeah, we fell for the bro marketers.
The bro marketers. And then how we invested $25,000 that we did not have at the time, how we took a $40,000 personal loan, and then why we created the Content is Profit, and at the start of everything that saved our business. Was that good?
It was decent. It was all right. I think we're gonna have to work on our quick.
Well, why don't you try it?
You know?
Why don't you try it? You go.
No, because that was your turn. Timer is over. We move on. So what happened after we invested, you know, those $25,000 that we didn't have? We had sweaty pits at the moment. We were so freaking nervous to do this investment. At the time, it was still the two of us, right? We didn't have anybody working for us. So what happened next? This is a little bit of the beginning of Content is Profit. When the podcast started, you know, actually, when the podcast was about to start, we didn't even have a podcast at that time.
Yeah.
So what happened?
You tell me.
Paint the picture for me.
It's your turn now.
I like go under the bus real quick.
Yeah.
All right. So this is what happened. We invested that money. Well, and we were extremely nervous, right? When they did the pitch, we were actually trying to guess the price. We're like, oh, this is going to be like $2,000, $5,000, and then the more they pitch, we're like $10,000, $15,000.
No, I capped out at $5,000.
Yeah, I think so. I think so too. This is the cool thing. Like, my mind didn't comprehend at the moment that there could be offers of $25,000.
Yeah.
Right. Like, for us, it was like, oh, it has to be like $5,000 is an insane amount of money. And I think that day, that changed your belief, right? And I think it's pretty cool. And here comes the lesson number 1 for today, which is you probably need to spend to a certain level to be confident to charge that certain level as well.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be very difficult for you to charge $25,000 for something if you have not experienced the process, maybe a little bit of the pain of investing those $25,000.
Yeah, it's like you sell. What was the phrase? You sell how you buy. So I think that was one of the conversations that we had early in the podcast, because we're sharing the story on how we initially started selling our social media services for $500. And that for us at the time meant the world. And it was really, really hard to even try and, sell at that point, because we haven't bought anything.
Our experience was selling like $30 memberships, literally.
Yeah, that was the only thing that we had at the time. So, clearly we've kind of evolved a little bit into that. Our price point starts at 5 times that.
Yeah. I mean, so this is the evolution of our price point. $30 when we were working at Happy Feet. Then we went to like $2 for the stickers. Then
they're bulk orders.
We went to bulk orders. Yeah. Then we went to $500 for the social media marketing agencies for restaurants.
Yeah. Then
went to $1,500 a month for the work that we did for the nutritionist. And then we charged $2,000. This was the very first time that we charged $2,000 per month to the dentist, right? At this point, we were still just freelancing. No business. We were doing everything.
Yeah.
We were just, we're noobs. We had no idea what we were doing.
Googling everything.
Yeah, we're Googling it. Google University saved our freelance career.
Yeah.
So comes this event and it's like $25,000 in your face. We're like, wow.
Is there a payment plan? And luckily there was. But decision again that we had to execute. And we shared this on actually the ClickFunnels podcast. With Steve, he was asking us, like, how do you guys operate? And, at the time we were sharing the story on how we put ourselves between the sword and the wall, and you have to move, right, to survive and move forward. And I remember the day that he sent us that picture. It's like, hey, we're about to start collecting on that, because they couldn't collect for like 4 months because they
made so much money.
They sold so much that the bank stopped all the money coming into them, and they had to like audit all the documents. And finally, like, they got approved and everything started to come out again. And we're like, oh boy.
Yeah, he literally sent a picture on Messenger with a legal notepad with their name, Luis and Luis. And then a voice note that said like, hey guys, we can finally start charging you guys. And we're like, oh no.
He was excited.
Yeah, he was excited.
Yeah,
we were like,
here's the kicker, right? Like they were delivering for those initial 4 months, right? And we were executing, but not at the speed, right, that we needed to actually execute.
Because we got complacent.
That's right, and that came back and bit us in the butt again.
In the booty.
In the booties, again, like a year later. So again, lesson learned. You cannot be complacent, right? You have to continue to move the things that move the needle forward, right? For us, is that sales process.
Like you gotta operate with urgency.
Yeah,
and there's been plenty of times throughout our journey that we get complacent, and we've paid for it.
Yeah, hard.
Hard.
Last year was like very hard.
Like backhand slap across the face. Hard.
Batman meme, combined with Will Smith, slap.
I think we need to do a better job at painting the image of memes here on the podcast. Like verbally painting the image of memes.
Just imagine Fonzie just waiting there and just me slapping his face like that.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. So fast forward a little bit. We started getting charged. March comes in. The great issue with the world. I don't want to get banned in here, so I'm not gonna say the word. the issue with the word.
The Voldemort's healthcare situation.
Yeah, just like shut down everything.
Yeah.
And we lost 80% of our business because we were operating with brick and mortars at that time.
And they all closed doors.
They called us and they said, no more, my friend, no más.
There's
just like that. They were like, no más, amigo.
They didn't say amigo. They were just saying like, hey, Luis.
Say no más, homie.
No more money.
No more money.
Go on your way. And we're like, but why? Right? Like marketing, again, another lesson, right? Like marketing is probably the last thing that you want to shut down because you want to be in touch with your customers. You want to be in touch, adding value. You want to be in touch with them, even if your doors are closed for whatever reason.
And it is
you
usually
need to be present.
And it is usually one of the first things that people call out, cut out their budget.
And we were so frustrated. We're like, how don't they see this, right? Like, and anyway, so we went out for a walk, or I went out for a walk, and when we came back, we're like, well, we're kind of trying to get out of these relationships because we were pivoting what we were doing with the business. We were trying to niche down in just one type of service. And, it was a blessing in disguise. And we decided now that we had some time to actually start the podcast and start Content is Profit. And a year earlier we tried, but because we added so much friction to the creation of the process, and this is where my saltiness comes from the feedback. Anyways, we could not produce it, right? We could not get an episode out. And we decided to remove all that friction to start recording and start being consistent, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to add a layer to that, right? A lesson. This is where our concept of minimal viable content, I feel where we finally experience the ultimate benefit of it, right? Which is how can we diminish friction so much and operate at high motivation levels so we can actually take action consistently, right? And I think about a year before that, we did the 45 Live, which if you want to hear a little bit about it, just go to the previous episode and you'll know what it is about. But the main thing was, how do we show up consistently?
Yeah.
And we did a live for 45 days, remove friction. We only did 17 days.
we failed that day.
Yeah,
17.
I'm not going to spoil the rest of the story. Just go to the previous episode. But with the podcast, we decided, okay, let's use the same principle. How do we remove friction? How do we increase motivation? How do we stay consistent? And that's when we realized that it's like, hey, we got the equipment that makes it very, very easy for us to have a very nice sounding podcast. And we have Facebook Live. That's all we need, right?
Yeah.
We need video. Cool. We're going to live stream it. We don't have to edit anything. And then the podcast is already recorded. The post-production is going to be minimal.
Yeah.
And by minimum, I mean we take the SD card and we just transfer the files and say we hit publish. That's pretty much
almost.
it.
I mean, we cut a little bit at the beginning.
I mean, now we do more, but at that time,
that was the idea.
It was just published. That's it.
And it's funny, right? Because we've shared this concept with many people, and I remember like we had our older brother try this out, and we have this story again in the podcast. But he was able to launch a show just on Facebook Live with the same type of format, right? And we sometimes put these ideas in our head that the show has to be so highly produced or so highly edited and take all the out, whatever, like all these things.
Is that another salty point about the review?
Another jab. Hey, I love my okay?
That episode is going to be great. I think it's going to be
Well, they wanted
hilarious.
us to disagree. I will definitely disagree with any point. No, I'm kidding. I love you, Hotspot.
I love you, Hotspot. I love you. It was a great report, honestly.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to do for some compelling content.
Okay, tangent alert, Fonzie.
All right, tangent alert. Get back to minimal viable content.
So he was able to actually release his show as a Facebook Live thing, right? He branded it as a show, but it was his own minimal viable content. Mm-hmm. And he was able to be consistent for his first season with 100 episodes and then close multiple deals. That meant freedom, right? Freedom for him. And a lot of people, right, maybe avoid going there because the story that they have in their heads is like these productions have to be highly produced, right? And that's a massive lesson. So I highly encourage you, like if you are in this journey of trying to start publishing something like this, a podcast, a YouTube channel, whatever you are trying to do an inventory of like how are you trying to do this, and be very honest, be very aware of like what's adding friction that's not allowing you to execute, and then remove that and find a different way.
Here are the questions that you need to ask yourself. Write this down. What is causing friction that I can remove, and then remove it. Then ask yourself, when am I the most motivated? Is it early in the day? Is it late in the afternoon? Am I motivated when I write? Am I motivated speaking on a podcast? Am I motivated when filming video? Because that's probably the medium that you want to take. And then ask yourself, is this enough for me to stay consistent? Or how can I make this consistent? And then put it in the calendar and stick with it. Make a commitment, right? At the end of the day, you need to make a conscious choice to show up every single day. It will take effort. Okay, it's not going to be easy, but by removing the friction and increasing that motivation, you're gonna increase your chances of staying consistent.
That's right. And keep in mind, like this was the beginning of what we're calling, creator economy meets B2B, which came after like 200 plus episodes, right, of producing this show. Where like, okay, now we're finding the type of audience that we're doing, and we see two sides. We see the creator side, picture YouTubers, picture TikTokers, right? Like all these people that go viral, millions of views, right? But on their back end, they're struggling on the business side or trying to monetize that or trying to come up with systems and operations and teams right on the back end. And then we have the B2B side of things where we're really good at systems, we're really good at processes, we're really good at building the teams, but then there's a lot of lacking in that creative process or creation process, right? So with this show, really what we wanted to do is like merge those two together and be like, okay, what is a happy medium inside of that where creators can, create those systems and processes on the back end to run a business, and that the businesses can build those processes and systems to actually be creative consistently.
And and you can see that shift already happening where like big companies are kind of like flocking towards lots of creators and having these creators be the face of the brand.
Yeah.
But how can a B2B business that maybe don't have the resources to hire a creator like that, or maybe even they don't resonate with some of the creators that are out there, how do they make their content
or they don't want to
compelling?
Manage the creators?
Yeah, they don't want to manage the creators.
There's so many things. There's going to be an episode just on that.
So this is the thing, right? And this is one of the things that we've been diving hard into lately here on the show, which is you got to find your own how, right? Just because a few companies have these influencers out there doesn't mean that you have and must do that. You need to find what is the how that's going to work for you and the capacity, right? And this is where the next principle that we discovered comes into place, which is a publishing pyramid, right? And we're going to dive a little bit deeper, I feel like, in a different episode. But the main thing is you need to understand your capacity and your resources to see how you're going to operate, right? So and based on that, you can build your own how. That's your own how with which you can stay consistent, because at the end of the day, it's a longevity game. Yeah. Regardless of you decide to publish 1 minute videos on TikTok or you decide to have a podcast, it's a game of longevity, right? Like if you are consistent enough to outrun your competition, you're probably going to win.
Yeah, just picture this. This was a great way for me to understand this. Like how often we go to Netflix or HBO or Hulu or these like streaming softwares, right? And we find this show.
I don't have an account on those.
Yeah, I know, but I do a lot. You hop on my account. Netflix, if you listen to this, just block FONZI's IP address.
Well, they're about to.
They're about to.
Yeah, that's a tangent alert. Topic for another day. Let's go.
For another day. So how many times, like if you are on these services, right, you go in there and you start digging for new shows and new content, new things. How often do you find a show that maybe you watch 1 or 2 episodes and they're on season 6 and it's the first time that you actually saw that episode, and then you're like, oh my gosh, let me go back and rewatch this for season 1. I remember maybe 2 months ago, right before the baby was born, Katie and I rediscovered Amazing Race. 31 seasons. It took them 31 seasons. And again, think about all the shows, right, that continue to be produced to be discovered. So the same works for content. There's a lot of people out there, right? They have been in our world for the last 2 years, but there's also a ton of people out there that don't know us, and we're about to hit episode 300, or we already hit episode 300 in the audio side, right? And we have to create so much more and add a lot of value. Just be consistent for those people to discover us, right?
Absolutely.
So how are you gonna, as a company, right, as a B2B business, how are you going to be consistent? And again, we're going to dive into the publishing pyramid, but these elements, right, understanding your resources and what is your how, like Fonzi says, is so important. Those two things, start thinking about it. How can you create your own frameworks?
Yeah. And a good way to start doing that and discovering that is through the minimal viable content.
That's right.
That is an absolutely incredible way to find out your capacity and resources. And then we're going to dive a little bit deeper into the publishing pyramid. I think we're getting close here to the end. We're going to have to do a part 3. Because I feel like this is the initial stage of our podcast. We actually operated under the minimal viable content and the publishing pyramid until about, I'll say episode like 50-ish. Like around episode 20, we started to discovering some of the benefits of podcasting. which we must say we went into podcasting with the mindset of, oh, we're going to build an audience and the audience is going to buy from us. But then around episode 20, when we started having guests and we started seeing the reactions and the interactions that we would get with them, that started changing, right?
That story of audience buying right away completely got crushed. By the way, that's a myth. That doesn't exist.
And then from episode 20 to like episode 50 around, Mr. Todd Brown, I feel like our mindset really changed to, whoa, this platform is very powerful. Look at the people that we can get in here, right? Yeah. So I think that is a great spot to leave it for part 3, where we can dive a little bit deeper into the 6-figure platform, right? So today we kind of talk a little bit about stage 1 of the podcasting process. Minimal viable content, removing friction, increasing motivation so we can stay consistent. And then through that, measuring your capacity and your resources to find your own how and move forward.
Yeah.
That's part of our journey. After that comes what's going to be part 3 of this series, which we're going to discover a little bit more of the 6-figure platform and what that has meant to the business. Actually, I think we should share, you shared it last time, but we should share it again. What has that meant for the business?
For us, it meant in less than 2 years, we've done more than $250,000 in sales, right?
Attributed to the podcast,
which is crazy, right? And this has become one of our main thing that we do, right? If everything goes, the podcast does not go, right? And we were able to hire our first team members. I think, we just rehired somebody else today, which was awesome. Welcome back, Giorgio. And, the service was deployed. We have been able to develop that process through our own platform.
We have been booked as speakers.
We have been booked as speakers on stages. We've been MCs. We've been paid travel. Like, all these amazing opportunities happen because we have this platform and we've been consistent, right? And more to come, by the way, like other opportunities that we cannot announce just yet. But part of it was being part of the Hotspot Podcast Network, right?
Shout out
to our friends, Hotspot Podcast Network.
Except the producer that gave us a review.
No, producer. We love you. We don't know who you are.
Yeah, we don't know who you are. That's a cool thing. It's like it's a ghost producer.
I'm gonna Marie, if you're listening, send us a contact detail from this producer. We want him on the show, or we want her on the show. We're gonna have this conversation.
That would be so epic. That would be great. Yeah. Having the breakdown of the feedback and with them. With them. Oh, do you want to disagree? Yeah, we'll disagree right now.
Let's go. Okay, great idea. Yeah. I know. Be like, so here's the thing. Here's why I feel so passionate, and I'm gonna wait. We have 6 minutes.
Yeah, wait. Tangent. Finish off first the idea of what happened through the podcast. What has given us? You already mentioned some of the benefits, and then opportunities.
And obviously that's great, right? And then the initial focus was revenue. Then last year happened. It was horrible. So the secondary focus was profit. Hold on. Can I finish?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I was just gonna mention, like, not the whole year was horrible. We had
I know a big part of the year.
A big part of the year was challenging.
Very challenging. Yes. We went past that. We passed that cycle. We
broke through.
We broke through that cycle, and things are looking very awesome lately. And but because we started focusing on the other type of numbers, like profits and things that we got to execute on the back end, right? What we talk about on the business side, like those processes and systems, right? Yeah. But what has been consistent has been the publishing. But most importantly, above that is the personal growth that happens as you start publishing every single day. The connections, the relationships, all these people that now all of a sudden are a click away, right? Whether that's a phone call, whether that's a DM that will respond back to you, people that we never thought in our life that we were going to be able to connect with them, people that we saw on stages years before, people that, we bought courses from the year before. Now we can call friends, and it's incredible. They're homies. And it's incredible because we give them giving them calls whenever we feel that there's a challenge coming up or we need some advice, and that alone is priceless. I think one episode we said, like, I think it was episode 100 or something, like, how can you get $100,000 worth of knowledge for free?
Yeah, like free mentorship.
And I think it came after episode 40 with Todd Brown, because Todd, he has to charge upwards of like $10,000 or more for like an hour of his time. Like,
yeah. And he gave us an hour of his time.
And he gave us an hour of his time for free, right? Just to be on the podcast. And the other day we reshared the episode as a Hall of Famer, and he responded back and he reshared the whole thing again. And it was incredible, right? So the access that a platform like this can give you, it's massive. And if you're a B2B, right, think big. Like, who are those people that I need to attract? Who are those accounts that are millions and millions of dollars, right? And yes, I will keep putting the background music until they cancel me in the podcast.
No,
I love the background.
We're going to have to vote for that. We're going to have to do a voting.
Hey, we'll see. We'll see.
You lost your train of thought?
I did.
Yeah.
No. If you're a B2B, right, think big. Like, it's not about the audience, right? I see a lot of people going and like, yes, of course, it's about the audience long term, but initially, who are those people that you can connect to today, right? We talk about fastest path to cash, that can make a difference in your business, whether that's a relationship, whether that's new business, whether that's a referral, right? And that's what changed everything with our show. And of course, the audience has been developing. We've been preparing different things. We've actually produced different workshops and experiences and giveaways to that audience that is super powerful. So
yeah. I think we've been through a few stages. We kind of mentioned it, which is stage number 1 was a little bit focused on audience, but mostly on staying consistent. Then stage number 2 was we discovered the power of relationships, developing those relationships, which we're going to be talking about a little bit more in part 3. And now we are on the next stage, which is we've developed plenty of relationships. And now we're being demanded by the HubSpot Podcast Network to grow and focus more on the audience side of things, right? So that is the third stage. But we have now a lot of relationships that we can leverage.
Yeah.
And more on that on part 3.
All right. I liked it.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Good episode, FONZI.
Dude, I'm kind of regretting that we didn't film this one.
All right.
I'm like, we would have such good content.
It's all good.
Yeah, or rant to the producers so we can send it to them. That would have been great.
Sweet.
Yeah.
With that said, guys, thank you so much for tuning into the Content is Profit podcast. Go ahead and follow the show and in your favorite social media channels at BIZBROS Go.
That is right. And if today's episode helped you move one step closer towards your goal, please don't forget to share this episode and leave a 5-star review. And don't forget to talk far from the microphone so you don't hear the
Bye, guys.